time, I'll call the meeting to order for the WISD Board of Trustees. Please let the record show that all 7 trustees are in attendance. This meeting has been duly called and notice the meeting has been posted for time and manner required by law. At this time, I'll ask Mr. Rogers to give us our invocation, followed by Ms. Starnader for our pledges.
Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for allowing us to come together in this open meeting to discuss the business of the Waxahachie Independent School District. And thank you for all the people present, especially the general public who can come and voice their opinions. And to these board members, that we make great decisions for the benefit of everyone. Pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right, I believe we have one individual signed up to speak. Is that correct, Ms. Bridges?
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Mr. Kaufman.
Please step forward. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 5 minutes to speak, and I will notify you when you have 30 seconds
All right,
left.
great. My name is Jim Kaufman. I live at 817 West Main Street in Waxahachie. I'm here to talk about the money we're wasting on our sexuality education courses. I say wasting because research reveals that they are not effective in reaching what I hope is our goal, which is, I think, having our kids grow up with a healthy understanding and attitude about sex, knowing and understanding all of their choices they have to protect themselves from pregnancy and STDs. Having them not become parents until they are finished with their education, married, and able to support a family. If you would contact people like Dr. David Wiley, who is the chair of the Health and Human Performance Department at Texas State University, or Dr. Susan Tortolero Emery at the University of Texas Prevention Research Center, or Dr. Mandy Goldman at Texas Women's University, or any other psychologist or epidemiologist at a major university researching teen pregnancy prevention, none of them would recommend any course we have ever taught here. The reason I know that is because I've called all these people. The courses we've been buying and teaching are not developed through research. They are merely someone's idea of what they think will work. Most of these courses use fear, shame, and misinformation, thinking it will keep the kids from having sex. Research clearly shows that that simply does not work. Texas shows that that does not work. All of the experts I have interviewed point me to a list of evidence-based, medically accurate courses that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Teen Pregnancy Prevention Evidence Review Board put together. They used a systematic process to evaluate these courses and held them to a rigorous standard. These courses are recognized as effective by the Centers for Disease Control and, frankly, anybody else who's been a professional researcher. If you want to see these courses, all you have to do is simply Google evidence-based teen pregnancy prevention programs at a glance. A chart will come up. The courses on that chart have been developed through research and show clear evidence of being effective. There are people who have told us that their courses are evidence-based, but if it's not on this list, they're not telling you the truth. It is common knowledge that the teen pregnancy problem is a root cause of poverty, child abuse, and many other ills in our society. But for some reason in this state, we turned a blind eye to the problem. Texas continues to be one of the top 5 states with the highest teen birth rates. And we have always been number 1 with the highest number of teen moms with 2 or more babies. So why is that, we ask? Well, first of all, we don't face the reality of normal human behavior. Studies done by the CDC reveal 7 out of 10 high school seniors have had sexual intercourse. The average age of first sex in the U.S. is 17. 97% of people in the U.S. are sexually active before they get married. Second, we don't do what the states with low teen birth rates do. Most school districts in Texas are just like us and teach these courses that are not effective. I know that there are some people who think that if we mention anything beyond abstinence—
1 minute, Mr. Kaufman.
we are giving the kids permission to be sexually active. That is simply not the case. If you do the research, you will see that there is clear evidence that the effective sex education that involves abstinence promotion and medically accurate information about contraception gets the kids to wait longer, become sexually active, and use contraception when they do. I want to read you something here that is a quote from Dr. Laura Kahn, PhD, senior scientist and distinguished fellow serving as the chief of the school-based surveillance branch of the Division of Adolescent and School Health at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Quote, "It really isn't good enough to do programs that don't have evidence of effectiveness or advocate for policies that don't make a difference. We have spent way too much time discussing, arguing, and fretting over whose morals and values are right and wrong, when public health science makes it abundantly clear what our path forward should be.
Mr. Kaufman, you're at 5 minutes,
It is time to be brave
sir.
enough and wise enough to take that path." I have a little more to say here, if I may. The one thing is a suggestion that I would like to make, that you contact the North Texas Alliance to Reduce Unintended Pregnancy in Teens. They go by their acronym of INTERRUPT, N-T-A-R-U-P-T, and ask their expert staff to assist us in selecting a course from this list of evidence-based courses that would be most effective for our particular student population. INTERRUPT is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization operating under a $5 million grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Teen Pregnancy Prevention Program. They're located in Dallas and work out of offices provided by the Meadows Foundation. Besides teaching teens evidence-based education, they also teach parents how to start that dialogue with their children about their sexual health. I said, okay, we could have them come here and teach parents. I'm through. That's sure. I didn't realize I had a 5-minute time limit. Thank you.
Okay, number 3 on our agenda is the consent agenda. We have items A, B, C, and D. Trustees, we can take these all at once. We can vote on them individually, or you can ask for one individual to be removed and discussed, whatever the will of the board is.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir?
I would like to ask item C to be removed, so we can discuss that.
For individual discussion?
Yes.
Okay. At this time, I will entertain a motion for the consent agenda for items A, B, and D.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the consent agenda, items A, B, and D.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, at this time, we will discuss item number 3C, consideration to approve replacing board policy FMH Local B with FMH Local A regarding commencement exercises.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
we've previously adjusted this policy, and I understand pretty much every year there's one or two students who, for whatever reason, it's on. Yeah. Are, maybe have met the local requirements, but not the state requirements. This past year in particular, there was one student that was very close, and I voted to allow for some discretion in this area last time. I know when we're looking at the revised recommendation here, it basically states if they meet local qualifications but not state, they walk. And I guess for me, I consider that lowering our standards a little bit, and I would rather see us continue to have the students meet all local and state required guidelines in order to walk. So that's kind of how I want to start the discussion and see what you guys think. I just feel like it'd be lowering our standards a little bit if we didn't have them complete both.
Well, obviously, I voted against it the last meeting, and I regret not speaking up, but when I did my research, I talked to several people in hopes I could make a good decision. And the people I talked to said it's probably not a good thing to do. Even though we allow discretion and there are exceptions to the rule, it's telling everybody out there in the audience, those kids that worked hard, met all the requirements, I think it's just setting a bad tone for the rest of the population, student population. And it's also part of my research that a lot of times, now this kid may be an exception, a lot of times the kid, they just want to walk and that's all they want to do. They don't care about the diploma. And from then on, they're on our books as a dropout. So that negatively affects our record. And that's why I voted no. And I'm with Mr. McCutcheon. I wish that we could reconsider that.
That's my understanding. The reason that this was put back on the agenda was some clarification from TASB. Is that correct?
That is correct. TASB, originally when the board approved it, trustees approved giving administration discretion on who would be allowed to walk. TASB recommended that policy be adjusted to either all students are allowed to walk or they have to meet either state or local requirements, one or the other. We tightened it up to the strongest language, which was they have to meet all state requirements, all local requirements, but do not have to meet state requirements in order to walk. Basically, it gets us out of the way of any discrimination cases that could be brought to the district by having a designee decide who gets to walk and who doesn't.
And I am not going to speak for or against because I lived it. I was senior advocate. I'm the person that held their hand when they didn't get to graduate for years, but we held them to the highest standard. Then it was tax. We made sure that every single student had everything given to them. I worked personally with those students, making sure that they had every opportunity, had everything that could possibly get them across, both with our requirements, and then it was the tax test. And when they didn't pass one section of the tax test, they didn't walk. That gets a little tough. This last week I made the motion, but it was a very difficult decision for me because I think of the student from California who came in her junior year because her mother had died. And we worked with her entire senior year to get her to graduate. And she passed all sections of the tax except for science. And if they didn't pass a section with us, I made sure that those kids came back and tested again. And every kid that we had come back and tested did graduate. That was the goal, for all students to graduate. However, We held a very high standard. We did make the students graduate, make sure that they had every opportunity. So I feel like that if we put more emphasis on the students graduating and making sure, I've asked Ms. Blaylock many times for a senior advocate for the kids to make sure that somebody is watching them and being sure that they do graduate. So having said that, I'm going to have to go with Mr. McCutcheon and Mr. Rogers. We need to hold the kids accountable, and their arguments have great merit because kids are kids. But we need to be sure that the Waxahachie ISD does everything in their power to be sure that those kids are held accountable, but that we help them any way we can.
Any other discussion? One thing I have to say is I know we had one instance this year of a child that was allowed to participate that didn't meet the state requirements. And I've personally called at least twice to make sure she was back up at that school this summer. And I have been assured that she was. And the teachers that I talked to told me that she wouldn't have come back if she hadn't been able to participate in commencement activities. Because to me, commencement activities are just ceremonial. I mean, you're just walking across, I say you're just walking across the stage. It means something when you're the one walking across the stage. And I see both sides. I do. The last thing I want to do is do something to a kid to make them not want to come back and finish. But also, I don't want to give them something that they didn't earn. But I don't think that they're given anything other than they're getting to walk across the stage. Anybody else have any other thoughts? Starting there?
I haven't had the opportunity to do this, but I just wonder what lately some of the best practices are from other districts, how they're handling it. I don't know if anybody can speak to that.
You know, in the districts that I'm familiar with their policy, I would say typically districts require both state and local requirements to be met to participate in commencement exercises. You really saw that come into effect with the tax test that Ms. Kriegel referenced a few minutes ago. But with STAR testing and certainly more rigor on the STAR test, you've seen some districts in the last few years go ahead and say, we're going to let students walk. You even saw the state of Texas back off. Originally, you had to pass all 5 EOCs to get your high school diploma. Now they're saying you have to pass 3 of 5 to be eligible to get your high school diploma. So with the rigor of the STAR test, you see a couple of districts who have backed off to allow kids to participate in the ceremony, but they still don't get to receive their diploma until they meet all state and local requirements. That doesn't really answer your question. I'll say more districts probably lean toward passing both to walk, but there are a few that just have you meet the local requirements.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just hard for me when during commencement exercises, you stand up there and say all these kids have met the requirements set forth by blah, 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 and then you're letting people walk across the stage that didn't. So I don't know if I'm chasing the wrong rabbit or if that's not applicable to this situation. It's just, you know, can anybody clear that up for me? Dr. Glenn, you say something to the effect of all these kids have met the requirements, you know, set forth by the state of Texas, blah, blah, blah. Is that
Sure.
applicable to this?
It absolutely is. We do get up and we certify that they've met all the requirements, but if we're going to say that, they need to have met the requirements locally and statewide. So if this policy changes, that certification statement would have to change for all students as well. I tell you, we do have Mr. Casas here with us tonight. He is our high school principal. If the board's okay with it, I would like to hear his thoughts on this as well.
Welcome to the limelight, Mr. Casas.
He's like, all right, initiation.
You know, as if we believe that every kid learns at a different rate, right? Some kids take longer, some get it real quick, some need extra tutoring, some, you know, they just need extra time. And sometimes those 4 years is just not enough time for those people, those kids to be successful. With that said, I believe in high expectations. I believe that's where we keep those kids, hold those kids accountable. But also, I just, I root for that underdog kid that has tried, that has worked, that has been, that's gone the extra mile, but just at that point is not successful. And those parents want to see that kid not feel left out or not feel that they're part of that group. So I know I'm kind of straddling the fence here.
No, and that's understandable. I can tell you, before Mr. Casas became high school principal, we have dealt with this for a couple of years, and we've offered an alternative graduation ceremony. We've held one in the FAC. We've actually held a couple here in the board room over the summer. So it's certainly not the big commencement that the students really want, but we have offered a summer commencement for those students after they meet state standards.
Sure, and that's a celebration. I mean, I think that'd be that's great, right? Because they need to be celebrated, even if it took a little longer to pass that test or finish up some of those classes or whatever it may be. They need to be celebrated. So, but I believe in high expectations, and I expect we want our kids to meet that standard too. And so I could go either way. I'd support those kids that didn't quite make it. And if they walked, I'd high five them like they did something special, and then make sure they carry through with a commitment.
Mr. Casas, I would like to encourage you to if you have enough staff, to find somebody to watch those kids specifically and try to be sure that every kid meets every expectation.
We have an AP that we assign to the seniors.
Okay.
Right, and she is on attendance, she's on grades, she's on all of that. So yes, we do have somebody that's an advocate for those seniors because they need that special attention. So we do have an AP that will help with that,
We did have, 1 year we had 100% graduate, and that was a really big deal back in the day.
yeah.
Of course, that's our goal.
Oh, that's a win right there, so.
Thank you, Mr. Casas.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion? Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion, however you guys want to state it, but the way that it was stated in our agenda is that we're replacing. So if you want to completely reverse the policy, you'll have to state in your motion how you want the policy to read. Go ahead, Ms. Darnatter.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
You mentioned the word discretion earlier. Can the policy, are we opening up a can of worms if we have the policy state that discretion can be used?
That's the way it is right now. Our policy is discretion. That's correct.
Yeah, TASB, that was originally what the board approved by a 6-1 vote last month. TASB advised against discretion in that case because it could allow someone a discrimination claim.
Dr. Glenn, what's your comfort level on this policy?
The policy as is worked for the district. I do think that we certainly, as Ms. Kriegel said, we should celebrate students. As much as I would like for us to look at students on a case-by-case basis, with TASB advising us not to do that, I think it makes sense to revert the policy back to students need to meet state and local requirements. So that would be my recommendation, but I also think the trustees need to allow for some sort of either ceremony here in the boardroom or some sort of commencement exercise for those students who do meet summer requirements. Certainly they should be celebrated for their efforts as well.
Any other discussion? Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion. Please state the motion.
Mr. President, I make a motion that FMH Local states to be eligible to participate in commencement activities and ceremonies, a student shall meet all state and local graduation requirements, including all applicable state testing.
Second.
So motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
At what point will we need to put some type of supplementary activity in for kids.
For like a summer commencement?
I think, because I think if you're gonna pass a policy in that manner, that you need to have that carrot to dangle at the end of the rope to get them going. There's no reason for us to revisit this again. Let's, in my opinion, you should do it correctly the first time. And having taught school and sat in the room, it's real easy to sit up here and say, oh, you gotta finish it all. But I know particularly in the case this year, I won't say it out loud now, but there were some issues of why that was there. It wasn't all there.
That's what I was gonna say. There were some other issues.
So,
And that's,
and that's not a, I'm not gonna sit here and board as an adult and pass judgment on something like that, because some of these kids, high school's gonna be the end of their education. That's great, they need to get it, so we need to make sure that if we put in a policy, it needs to have something there.
and that's why I'm
them to get
asking
it.
for more assistance, more remediation, more, making sure that every kid does receive and doesn't
Well,
go through the
That won't be
situation.
in this policy.
Right.
We just need to set a supplementary graduation or summer or something for this.
Okay.
And
I agree with you, but that's not part of this.
Right. How about if we table this? Won't you?
You certainly can, because it is a policy issue. I will tell you, later on, you're going to be reviewing the code of conduct. It would be easy for Ms. Blaylock to put an addendum in the code of conduct that lists a certain timeline, perhaps the last Friday in August, the first Friday in August, that we'll have a summer commencement exercise. She could also make an addendum in the code of conduct before you approve it, that students who perhaps are in danger of not meeting that requirement, their parents will be notified earlier, because I think we run into a lot of problems because parents begin inviting people, they fly in, they drive in, kids are ready to graduate, so maybe some sort of document that we have parents sign or require the kid to sign after the 5th, 6 weeks, so parents are aware that their child's in danger of not meeting those requirements. And I know the high school does a good job of getting that information out, but it certainly would be good for the district to have something signed by the parent that they understand we notified them that they may not be able to participate in commencement exercises.
We can definitely do that, and I can work with Ms. Carolyn Austin at TASB on getting some language added to this policy if you want to have a second graduation ceremony that happens and you want that bound by policy to ensure that it happens. It has happened every year for the past 3 years, but if you want that to be definitive that it will continue to happen, we can put it in the policy.
I just think if you do it now, you won't have to revisit it, and we won't have to sit through this again. Let's
What-
fix it.
Dr. Glenn, another concern, arguing the other side, is the legislature has talked about doing away with the rule 3 out of 5. That's a real concern also. So,
As
like I
this-
said, I'm very convoluted on this issue.
Senate Bill 149 is expected to expire on September the 1st of 2018.
And they likely will probably renew it.
They have extended
Likely,
it
probably. I know
every time
that's-
it's come to expire, they have extended it, so.
Sure.
Ms. Kriegel, do you have additional information?
I do believe that last session, though, they said that they didn't understand why they continued to renew it, and that they'd given us enough time.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Motion carries 5-2. Moving number 4, action items, budget and finance. Mr. Collin, 2018-2019 budget update.
Mr. President?
Is there a particular page for this?
No, sir, this is just for information, and so be happy to send you the slides if you would like them.
No, I just want to
afterwards.
follow along.
So just kind of a real quick review of where we are with the 18-19 budget. Its process started back in around March and April with meetings with every campus leader and every department head to kind of get from them what their needs were going forward, be they facility, be they personnel, be they discretionary spending. And then around the end of April, around April 30th, we received the certified preliminary taxable value estimate from the appraisal district. That was the original driver as we went through as to what our property revenues would be. From there, in May, we sought approval for teacher pay increases and cost of living updates for staff, paraprofessional auxiliaries. From that point, we kind of went on a little bit of a hold with the budget, waiting to see our end-of-year ADA numbers. So we had those numbers at the end of the May, first part of June, once those were calculated. So with that, we felt comfortable asking for adjustments to the paraprofessional pay scale. And then tonight, we're kind of going over really where we are at this point, and at the next meeting, you'll get first review and presentation of the budget book and all of the budget documents for the 18-19 fiscal year. On August 27th, we'll have a public hearing for the consideration and setting of the tax rate and to adopt the budget as presented. And then September 1, the budget year becomes active as we are at that point in the 18-19 fiscal year. Budget priorities that have been identified for us, for staff from the board. Make sure that we had sufficient positions for all campuses after the summer of repurposing, as I guess I've started calling it. So at this point, you've approved about 70 positions between Waxahachie High School, Global High, Coleman, Findlay, Howard, Wildman Elementary, and the Turner Pre-Kindergarten Academy for the relocation, expansion, or improvement or beginning of those programs in the case of some of these campuses. You've approved a 3.5% increase on the midpoint salary for teachers, and we've also stretched the salary scale to 40 years from its previous 30-year. We've also approved increases for paraprofessional auxiliary staff, cost of living adjustment for administrative staff, and you told us a priority was budget for a second school resource officer position. All those priorities and incentives have been factored into the 18-19 budget at this point. Right now, the reason you don't have a budget in front of you tonight is we're in the reconciliation process. So we've taken our expectations, we've taken what you've approved, and we're working out the differences between the two. We will have that reconciled for you by the 23rd and have all that information for you at that point. And you'll have about 1 month and 3 board meetings, I guess, the 23rd, August 6th, and August 27th, for us to have discussions, dialogues, make some changes wherever you see fit. The budget is a living live document, so just because we have it in the original draft doesn't mean it has to stay that way. If you want to make some allocation adjustments and changes to it, it's easy to do. We can do that before adoption or even after adoption in the implementation through a budget amendment. Process going forward, as I was telling you, Business Office and Human Resources are reconciling our positions and ads to ensure that we give you accurate information. On the 23rd, you will get supporting budget information by function in every fund that's required to be adopted, along with a budget book that last year was about 29 pages. It will give you breakdown by function. It'll give you breakdown by object category for expenditure, so you'll know payroll by function, contracted labor by function, supplies by function. August 6th, we'll have that dialogue about answering any questions you may have, providing additional information that you may request, any more detail that you may want before you take action on the budget. On the 27th, again, we'll do the public hearings on the tax rate and the budget and seek your approval on both at that point. And then, of course, September 1, we'll turn the budget on and get to fulfilling those budgeted allocations. So at this point, one thing that I did not mention, you are required to adopt a budget for the general fund, the debt service fund, and the child nutrition fund. And you're required to adopt it by function, so it will not be on an object level that you'll see for adoption. We will give you the information, if you would like it, on the object level on a flash stick so that you can go in there and see it. It's nauseating. It'll be about 1,500 pages, and it's just numbers on a page. So if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Be happy to answer what you're looking at, but just know that when it is presented, it will be on a fund and function level. All that being said, any questions about the process, any specific things that you would like to see either at the next meeting or going forward to help you get comfortable with where we are in the budget and where monies have been allocated?
Mr. Calden,
Yes, ma'am.
Are you going to give us a list of the functions so then that way we'll kind of
Yes,
know?
ma'am. We have a little budget book that we've put together in Excel that'll kind of help explain what each fund does and what each function, and actually it'll go down to the object level if you would even like it on that end. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, I know we've talked about this a lot, doing an audit on the 125. Have we got a price on that we can include in our budget?
No, sir, at this point we haven't. So it's a professional engagement, so we can reach out to certified public accountants to go out and do that. Would like some feedback on the board. Would you like to use the accountants that we already have scheduled for the financial audit? Would you like someone different? Do you have someone in mind?
Well, I'm only speaking for myself, but I have no idea what that would cost or anything. I think that would be important to get some kind of ballpark before we go into budget.
Okay. I'll reach out to our current auditors and get you a ballpark price, and we can go from there.
Any other questions for Mr. Colvin? Thank you very much. Curriculum and academics, consideration to approve policy and pre-K fee to allow WISD employees to opt in, providing space availability. Ms. Blaylock. Which one do you want?
Where'd it go? Get our equipment functioning for us. Good evening, board. Tonight, we would like to have finish up our conversation related to pre-kindergarten availability for our employees. We have been discussing this for a couple of months based on the fact that our Turner building is expanding now to add an additional hallway to the building. We are, based on our long-range planning committee, expanding our coursework for pre-K to full-day program. And through your additional staff ads, we now have 16 pre-K, PPCD, and inclusion sections available for this full-day program. And on top of that, we have a request from our staff saying, please make these seats available to us that you may have open. In your board book, you had a memorandum from me that has all of these highlights in it. And so we want tonight to discuss the fact that we need to set a tuition should you choose to go forward with accepting this policy. We as leaders have recommended a cost of $350 a month, knowing that that is well below our maximum state tuition limit, which is over $800. That would cover the cost of the program, including the after-school services, and it's far below our market value for what we would be providing and below what our daycare is providing. Currently, the daycare has a list of 38 students on the waiting list. 2 of those students are 4-year-olds that can't even fit into the program there, that our employees have been anxiously awaiting space. What we discussed last time was continuing to offer the class at the pre-K, at our daycare for pre-K, where they can still get free breakfast and lunch. They can have before and after school and in-service day childcare should they need that. The curriculum is the same, but the pre-K access to our actual classrooms would be giving them a certified teacher, which at this time daycare does not offer. And our employees have shared with me that both of those are avenues that different individuals would still like available to them. So if you were to go forward with this tonight, this monthly cost would be divided out over 12 months. And you can see here what that monthly breakdown would look like per year for our staff members that would be utilizing these seats. Based on the staff survey, we felt like we had a good majority of our staff that felt like this range was getting near their maximum that they would be able to afford moving forward. So in your board book, I have presented a draft policy to EHBG local that would then give you some definite rules on who can utilize these open spaces. So in paragraph 1, it defines that this would be made available to district employees' children, specifically when space is available, therefore ensuring that you would not be bound by having to add additional classrooms every year. We would be able to use the space that we have available. That students must still meet the criteria, and this is for students who do not qualify based on their current income eligibility. We do have some staff members who may qualify for that. And then lastly, that if they were eligible during the school year, that we would not withdraw or unenroll students that do not meet the eligibility criteria unless they did not meet statutory attendance requirements, which then becomes an issue with our ADA. So this is what, in working with TASB, this is what they feel like is a fair policy. We've taken policies from about 5 different districts and combined them into what hits all of our criteria. Can I answer questions for the board at this time?
How many spots do we have available?
We currently have about 150 students who are on Ms. Foster's enrollment at this time. We know that we will have more students coming in August, as that's when they typically enroll. But based on what we have coming up, rolling up from PPCD, staying in that building, and have made confirmation, she thinks about 150 right now is what she has. Last year, we served 190 students in our Turner Pre-K program. And so we would be able to certainly fulfill what the requests we have from employees at this time, we anticipate.
And how many spots are open for employees?
That number is a little bit of a moving target because it is based on enrollment which is not going to be finalized until August. So to be able to say we only have this many spaces available, what we know is the state says we have to serve the students that are eligible. So possibly what you're asking is we would give them the seats, and if it ended up that we were exceeding that, we would then have to meet the state's requirement of an additional adult for each 11 children there. It's which one certified teacher. Right now we have a certified teacher and for every 11, and then an additional paraprofessional when they exceed that. Did I answer your question?
Did you clarify what the fee would be per month?
Yes, sir. It would be, we are proposing $350 a month to cover educational costs, including the after-school care, which is the component that our staff members, this campus will be ending their school day at 2:45, and our elementary and secondary staff have different finish times at the end of the day, so we would want to provide support to cover their children until they would get off of work.
And refresh trustees on what they currently pay for the daycare.
I believe Mr. Boshier is increasing to $395 a month. Mr. Calden, is that correct?
I believe that's right. I believe they're at $375 right now.
Currently, yes.
So the impact of 4,200 to the budget, that's just a pass-through item, right? Or is that an actual impact to our budget?
We would be covering our after-school care for the paraprofessional to take care of those children after school. Do you want to elaborate on that, Mr. Calden?
But it's not recoverable through the tuition? Is that?
Yes,
okay.
That's what the tuition would cover.
So if we have additional students who are not needing the after-school care for whatever reason, that $350 from those students would go to offset some of the other cost of the program. That wasn't the original intent. The original intent of the program is really just to try to cover that after-school care cost.
Any other questions?
Can you refresh our memory again on the, I know you mentioned this last time, the Little Chiefs Academy. They do have a pre-K program as well, right? Or something similar, and that won't affect
Right.
them,
Yes,
right?
ma'am. Ms. Clark and I have been in close conversation about this, and they're actually the ones that approached us about maintaining their class instead of doing away with their class. Our original, very initial conversations were to just transition all of those students over, but the district would not be able to provide that in-service childcare that they need. When we come back in August, all of those days, it's the first day that teachers return, that's when the child care center begins to service those children. And so the actual pre-K, our Turner Pre-K Academy will not be providing services on those days. So she, very early on, probably mid-March, started to receive confirmation from many of her parents. So she still would maintain a full classroom. And the email that she sent me is currently a full fourth grade classroom with, 4-year-old classroom with 2 students on the waiting list. So yes, they would be maintaining that.
Ms. Blaylock, Mr. Calden, to further expand on Mr. Rogers' question, likely none of these students will be eligible for state reimbursement. So at what point does the district break even on the cost of allowing employees, kids into a pre-K program?
If we have a class of 22 students who otherwise do not qualify for income or income-based, and they're each paying the $350. That $350 will cover the cost of the teacher, the paraprofessional, and the after-school care for that class.
So the break even is a class of 22?
Break even, I believe, is it 18?
Yes.
It's 16 or 18, and on just that class, that would be that break even point.
Any other questions or discussion? At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the special programs pre-kindergarten policy, which I believe is called EHBG local. A motion?
Mr. President, I move to approve EHBG local as presented.
Is a motion or a
Second. I'll second.
A motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Board. We're going to have some very excited employees.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Shack
For our
committee
next
update.
presentation, Ms. Ginger Robinson, who is the chair, she's over the Shack Committee. Are you officially the chair?
I think Jeff's got it on there.
Which one?
Yep. Good evening, Board. I am here to present our state-required, sorry, I touched it. Our state-required annual School Health Advisory Council updates. I am Ginger Robinson, the Director of Assessment and Accountability, but I'm also the WISD SHAC Coordinator. And so I'm going to give you a brief overview of what a School Health Advisory Council is, and then our 17-18 activities. So a SHAC is a group of individuals representing segments of the community and school district which provides advice to the district on coordinated school health programming and its impact on student health and learning. TEA state requirements for SHAC are listed here. WISD meets all of these state requirements. TEA also requires that a coordinated school health program is implemented and in place in a school district. Waxahachie ISD has implemented the CATCH program in our grades K through 8. Here you can read our mission statement, if I don't stop touching it. Here we go. We have incorporated our SHAC, our School Health Advisory partnership in with our coordinated school health program. We worked our two teams together to better understand that and to provide a healthy lifestyle for all. We have a flow chart. There it is. So I have a flow chart designed to understand better how the School Health Advisory Council works in conjunction with our coordinated school health program team. And this is Waxahachie's flow chart. Here is a list of our coordinated school health team with each district leader listed next to those who oversee that area of our School Health Advisory Council. At the beginning of each year, this team works together to present to our SHAC, to our School Health Advisory Council, of what our goals will be for the upcoming school year. Our SHAC is governed by an elected group of officials. Our SHAC meets, and we have a group of amazing people. Becky Scasta is our chair. She is now completing her second year as chair. Tasha Taylor is our secretary. She's completing her second year as secretary. And then Billy Stevenson is our scribe. Our SHAC has met, these are our 5 meeting dates for the 17-18 school year. Ooh, this little fancy machine, I keep messing with it. And WISD has met all of the state requirements. The minimum requirements to meet is 4, and then we met for 5. Next listed is an activity report. These are the things that, some of the activities that our SHAC oversees within the school district. And then next, I'm going to talk with you about our 3 action items that we had on our agenda for the 17-18 school year. These 3 are the teen dating violence policy. We updated our communicable disease policy and an implementation of the wellness policy. And I'm going to briefly go over each of these action items with you so you can see what our SHAC did. In review of the Texas state recommended school safety plan for teen dating violence policy, it closely mirrored what Waxahachie ISD's bullying policy looked like. So what I did was I took that policy, the teen dating violence policy recommended by the Texas School Safety Program, and our bullying policy, and I incorporated those into one. This new updated policy was unanimously approved by the SHAC on May 16th, and this policy will be presented to you, the board, for first review at the July 23rd meeting. So you guys will get a copy of that. Our second action item, due to the prevalence of certain infectious illnesses in the classroom setting, the committee was formed to review district health policy and discuss any changes or additions that might need that we might need to just decrease our spread of illnesses. So what we did was the committee affirmed the fever change policy. We made this year, we decreased the school exclusion from 100.4 degrees to 100 degrees. So if a student has a 100-degree fever, they have to stay home. We also implemented, you guys know that we put the custodial department had a disinfecting mist program it kills 99% of all bacteria and viruses. That was used this year. And then we are also working to bring free flu immunizations to our district this school year. The flu shots will be at the campuses, and they give students also an opportunity to receive the flu vaccine. And our third and final action item was our WISD wellness policy. Our Employee Wellness Committee has made great strides this year. We provided a list of all gym and workout facilities that have discounts offered for WISD staff. There is a monthly health newsletter that goes out, the Wellness Wiki. My ladies here are who send that out each month to the school district. You have also been presented by Nurse Bousquet, a workout room. We are looking at providing that for our school employees. And then we have representatives from Camp Gladiator who have worked and volunteered on our WISD campuses. A last-minute addition to our action items, at our last SHAC meeting, we decided that at the end of the school year, we had put into place our random drug testing policy. And after review of a year of a pilot of this program, we decided that we needed a subcommittee to review the policy and kind of look at some things that we needed to tweak. One of the big one is we are looking to increase our 5-panel drug testing to a 10-panel drug testing. Listening to school counselors, school administrators, working with the SHAC subcommittee and the nurses. We just don't feel like the 5-panel is really catching everything that we need to be aware of. So the committee is going to work to look to see if we need a 10-panel drug test.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Just want a quick clarification. How many drug tests did we administer this past year? 1,000?
Nurse Bousquet, I brought her.
800? And how many of those were failed tests?
I would say we had less than 10, probably more like 6.
6 in grades 7 through 12?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So we are looking to increase that. And then upcoming are areas of focus for 18-19 school year. The WISD mental health awareness for students and staff. We want to collaborate with WISD administration team and school board on a school safety program, implementation of the WISD teen dating violence policy, and the awareness of and education for staff and students. And then we're going to review and update our CATCH, our health and PE curriculum program. We're just going to kind of refresh that. We've had a lot of new employees who need to be trained on that and updated. And then I included some websites if you want to know more. Any questions?
Just two things. One, thank you for a thorough presentation. Would you mind emailing trustees this PowerPoint so they have a copy of it?
Yes. Do you, I sent it to Ms. Villarreal.
Perfect.
Is that okay? Okay.
Ms. Robinson, what's the procedure for random drug testing, like the logistical part of it? Are all the kids called at once? Are they sequestered in a room? Are they called one by one? How does all that work?
It varies from campus to campus. The junior highs, we don't call as many, so they can be all called at one time. I've been present on 2 different junior highs. The administrator kind of does it what works best for their campus. Some will call down 2 or 3 at a time, but they don't all go into the room together. That's all monitored by the company. But at the high school, of course, we can't call them all down at once. So they're the counselors, the counseling team goes and gets the students. We try to get them back in class as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I would just be an advocate of minimizing the time. You know, the test maybe takes, 5 or 10 minutes per student. I'll just say, full disclosure, my daughter, and I try to filter what she tells me because she's a teenager, but she missed 2 AP classes because of the drug test. And I'm for random drug testing. I think it's a great thing, but I don't think they should miss 2 hours for a 5-minute deal. And maybe if logistically we could figure it out to where we could minimize the classroom time that they miss. And again, full disclosure, I give certain latitude to a teenager telling me the story. It could have been exaggerated, could not have been, but if you miss 2 AP classes, it's like missing a month. So I would just be an advocate of trying to minimize the classroom time that they miss.
That is one thing we have had feedback from parents, and that is one thing that the committee is looking at, trying to put something into place on what that will look like on a campus. We sure don't want to tell each administrator how to do it, but when they are missing, they need to hear that feedback. And so Nurse Bousquet and I get that. And so that is something that we're looking at how we can make that more effective with getting them in and out. Now, shy bladder, that is part of, we've learned that there's not a lot we can do about that.
How many students do you test in a day, say at the high school? I mean, what's the
60.
goal?
We usually do 66 at the high school, at Waxahachie High School, and about 14 at Louisville High School.
Okay.
And then we do 10 in each junior high.
Okay.
You know, we're going to have an additional junior high now, so that's something else we're going to need to talk about. How we're going to do additional tests. We could have 100.
Okay, so it's a percent.
Right now, we do 100, give or take, because there are students who are absent. We fill those from an absentee list, so.
But one thing that we could do to alleviate that problem, and that does happen sometimes. A lot of times we have one female technician and one male technician to do the high school, so it is slow sometimes. We could look at maybe doing the high school on a day all by themselves, so actually we get 2 of each, and that might speed up the process and get those kids back to class.
And the list, the random list, that's generated by the company, right? We have nothing to do with that. Okay, yeah.
I get the list, I'm as surprised as anybody.
And it's only extracurricular kids, is that correct?
Yes, it does surprise.
Big problem with that. But you don't have control of that, but that just seems highly discriminatory to me, but it's nothing we can do about that. Well, just testing their extracurricular kids, seems like everybody should be tested.
Well, the only reason for that is if we don't test everybody, we can't punish them because it is not a cause. We're not testing the kids because they've done something to make us think that they're involved with drugs. So we can't punish them if they do test positive.
Yeah. I know it's been litigated, and there's nothing we can do about it at the local level. It's a, state, federal, whatever, but I don't agree with that.
But if there are students that are suspicious for some reason that they're involved with drugs, that falls under a completely different policy. And they can be punished. That's a discipline policy.
So we do test the kids that drive
Yes.
also?
Yes. Any other questions?
And what Ms. Bousquet was just referencing, Nurse Bousquet, just at the end, it's not subject to the drug testing for a suspicion-based search. It's not drug testing per se, but with reasonable suspicion and probable cause, we can then do searches of the person to find substances and then punish both student discipline and law enforcement.
Thank you very much, Ms. Robinson. All right, item number 3, first review of the 2018-2019 student handbook.
Yes, Board. In Board Book, you were able to see the first of the work that's going on related to our handbooks. This document comes to us from TASB. Every year they give us an update. And so as you received, we have now moved to one district resource as of last year. So we have a guiding document that is our handbook for all students. That was a recommendation from TASB as they noticed that there was a lot of redundant information and contradictory information when school districts had multiple handbooks. So what we have in place now, found on our website, and we will get this approved this summer and get that up quickly for parents, is one district resource. It does meet all of the accessibility features that are required for online access, which is very critical to make sure we are complying with all of those laws and practices. It's aligned to the newest legislation, so with every minor update, TASB's giving us a recommendation, and you may have noticed that there were some different colored highlights within the version that you saw. Those are based on recommendations, and a few of those we were still finalizing. As soon as we do get that reviewed, we'll get that document updated, and we continue to monitor those. Next year, when we have another legislative cycle, we will have a very large, usually almost an overhaul of the student handbook as all of the new laws are put into place. So once we move to this document, campuses now provide us a campus addendum. All campus administrators are in the process of finalizing those currently. It has all of those fine details that the district book does not. So if you want to know the checkout practices for Waxahachie High School, you would find that in Mr. Casas's addendum, which is online. So it's a little bit smaller document for parents to reference, and it lets campuses give the specificity that they need specific to their campus. I didn't hear any negative feedback on that last year. I think principals are updating that and getting it even more user-friendly. This handbook really has minor changes to it, just a few of them related to recent, obviously speculation for the state is special education timelines and Section 504 referral detail, giving more explanation to parents about what the timelines the state conduct are and the practice of them not having to provide written requests any longer for a special education assessment process to happen. And if they say it to myself or any other district administrator, that we have to react within 15 days should a parent request that. In addition, it expounds on response to intervention because special education, dyslexia, and response to intervention are very critical in the federal government analyzing how the state of Texas is supporting our special education students. And then finally, the major other big item is it gave quite an extensive explanation of hazing examples now. In the past, it was just bullying. Now they're very much expanding explanation of what hazing looks like. So those were the few updates that have happened within that handbook. You may have noticed in the hot pink coding within the book, I noted several areas that should you update your safety and security policy, there are some practices we will need to update within the handbook. And of course, as soon as you make decisions on those things, those items, I will get that updated in not only our district handbook, but the campus addendums. Secondly, code of conduct. There are no recommended changes at this time with all the legislative changes that happened last year related to Chapter 37. This is completely updated, and TASB did not make any recommendations other than safety and security plan decisions that you are currently assessing. And then lastly, dress code changes. We have sought feedback from campus administrators, both principals and assistant principals and district leadership for all 3 of these documents. And we did not have any overwhelming responses for us to update or change any of these, including district dress code changes. So these documents are all staying as they are unless the board has another recommendation for us. Anything I can answer about those documents? Okay, we'll make final decision on that at our July the 23rd meeting, if not August. And then lastly, just a quick update on STAR EOC. We currently have results for 1 and 2 for our STAR EOCs. For STAR grades 5 and 8, results for round 1 and 2, but they are able to take a third retest for both of those areas for EOCs and grades 5 and 8. So we are still in that waiting process. And more than anything tonight, just wanted to make sure that I get these dates in front of you so you know what to anticipate. The grades results that we have for 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are initial, and they are continuing to be finalized. In your board book, I included the comprehensive appendix from the accountability handbook, but these are the most critical upcoming dates for us. On August the 14th, the preliminary accountability tables will come out. That will be in an area that both Dr. Glenn and I have access to with rating labels and our distinction designations. Then on August the 14th, the campuses will start to receive their identification if they're starting to look at intervention, and then preliminary accountability tables on August the 15th. Our taper report comes out in November, and depending on when that document becomes public, we will either present that at the November or the December board meeting. So you'll be able to see all of that information at that time. Of course, as this information becomes available to me, I will make sure that Dr. Glenn is able to provide that to you. So we're on the state's timeline related to assessment at this time.
Any questions for Ms. Blaylock?
Real quick, I'm still learning, so forgive me. And this may not even apply to the student handbook, but do we have a policy or policies for certain things like how the bells and bows are selected, who sits on the stage during graduation, who goes to the honors lunches, things like that? Is it top percentage, top? How does that happen?
Those campuses have developed a criteria for that. Bells and bows, if that's outside of the district, which that's not a district responsibility, that happens as far as community support, that would be they would have their own bylaws and guidelines for how that would be selected. If you looked in Waxahachie High School's handbook, they would be able to, it gives you clarification and detail as versus Global High School, who has different individuals sitting on the stage. That would be a campus-based decision for those types of things that you just referenced. There is policy that supports what type of honor graduates we recognize and which types of, what level, what percentage, and what places of students we recognize, but beyond that, those are campus and then somewhat district level decisions, with Dr. Glenn being a support for those campuses. I think all of those practices were in place before either of us arrived here, but that's how they're made.
I could not tell you how we select bells and bows.
Right.
Yeah. But I know that like our honors breakfast typically is a campus decision, and there are some discrepancies. I know Global High School, we recognize the top 10.
Yes.
So from a percentage standpoint, that's a higher percentage than what we recognize at Waxahachie High School.
When the honors breakfast started, it was just at Waxahachie High School because that's all we had at that point, and it was the top 10 students. But as the student body and continued to grow, the top 10 students maybe represented the top 3% of the class. So it was moved to 25, and then as it continued to grow, we moved it to 30. So for WHS, and then
so it's about the top 5% of students, and Global gets roughly the top 10%, even though their classes may be a little less than 100 kids.
The only reason I bring it up is maybe at some point, I know this isn't a real pressing issue, but maybe we ought to put something in writing just to satisfy, the parents that are apprehensive about the process. why did we change it to 26 when it used to be 25? Or, you know, if there's some general consensus or general attitude that we fluctuate to accommodate. So I want to get away from that. Maybe start talking about having something in writing that you know, we can all fall back on and say that we stick to that, and that's, you know, that's the way it is. But it may be one of those deals where it does fluctuate, or it has to fluctuate. Like I said, I'm still learning, but that was a hot topic when I was running. Seemed like it wasn't always consistent.
And I know that there are times that, for example, you have to have 26, let's say, at the senior honors breakfast because there are 2 kids that are tied. There are things like that do require us to fluctuate, but really the major fluctuations have come with the growth of the student body.
But it would be easy to set specific parameters in the student handbook.
Yes. In addition to adding Mr. Schoolfield's request for the declaration that we will have a second graduation practice and ceremony for those students that graduate after the end of the year ceremony.
So,
again, very small in the grand scheme, just may eliminate some future headaches if we had some consistency on that.
honors breakfast, bells and bows, and the students, we don't do bells and bows.
Bells and
Coronation.
Oh, coronation.
Okay. And is that just popular vote?
Coronation is.
That's always a big one.
Coronation, the students are nominated by teachers, and then they're voted upon by students. So it is likely a different process than, so homecoming is nominated by the class, and then prom king and queen are nominated by their seniors who are nominated by the junior class. So, and then students vote on both of those.
I think that's a great idea to put all that in writing, though, and communicate that. I think that's a really good idea. And I can tell you Bells and Bows is sponsored by the Waxahachie Symphony Association, isn't it? I think. Okay. Yeah, the district. It's not a district program.
Anybody else? Thank you very much, Ms. Blaylock.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Facilities construction, Mr. Mealich.
Good evening, board. Get through this presentation. Ms. Starnader and Ms. Kriegel recognize this scene. When we first walked into, this was the old CTE, or this is the current CTE building. When we walked in there probably 3 weeks ago, it was like a bomb went off. There was all sorts of construction. So this is, all the walls that you used to see in here are now gone. But so in order to get it to DAP and curriculum, we basically had to gut it. And the construction report that you have is about 2 weeks old, so a lot has been taking place in there. We've got walls up. These are some windows that'll go into the curriculum area. This is some sewer work that we had to do, some saw cutting. We had a collapsed pipe in there. It was flowing, but in order to go ahead and do all the work, it's better to do it now. You see the tile on the walls. This will be the DAP wing. So we have the tile up about probably. Those are about 7 feet high, so they go just below the doors, probably 6.5 feet. So the tile's in, and as you recall, that's for this project, that's Project A, and the curriculum is Project B. Project A is critical. We need to get the students in there, we need to get kids in there. So that's why we're really focusing on this area. And the curriculum area, we're gonna get them in as soon as possible, but we're not breaking our back to get them in there. We're breaking our back to get the Project A completed. This is Wildman. We've been going through Wildman. We had a little trouble with getting the permit from the city, then some asbestos abatement. We've got all that stuff taken care of. This is the contractor putting some millwork around some electrical cabinets. This is the grand entry area on the second floor. From when it was Global, that back left room was Ken Lynch's office. So that's going to become, this is going to become an entry feature, a library, and then that'll become some active space for makerspace. Then we go to the high school project. I really highly recommend anybody go out there. I believe tomorrow we're going to have the teen school board out there, start some leadership projects, and then Wednesday and Thursday, could be wrong on those dates. We're going to have students come from throughout the district. Highly recommend going out there. This is the auditorium. They've finished it up. Jacob punched it, I believe, Thursday. It's a beautiful site. I mean, remember, if you recall, back in January of 2017, this was the first piece of steel to go vertical. This is the last piece of the building that we're completing. So it's just a massive structure, the most complicated structure really on the entire building. This is just some of the acoustical treatment that goes in on the side. The sound, the visuals are just incredible in there. This is a library. We've pretty much furnished the entire library. We still have plastic on the furniture. I think we're going to remove that by the time students get here. I'm not really sure though. Miss Mills is very particular about that furniture, so that might remain for a couple of months. But the library is furnished. This is a computer lab that's just off the library. If you see through the glass storefront beyond the computer lab, that is the library, and then you have the collaboration rooms to the right of that. The auto lifts came in probably, I would say, about 3 weeks ago. Those were approved, I believe, in the May board meeting, that Board of Trustees meeting. Those were approved. Those were installed about 3 weeks ago. If you look at all the stuff to the right, that is all the CTE equipment, books, teacher materials, that stuff that's been moved in. We did give Mr. Boucher the go-ahead to move into all the offices today. We gave Mr. Armstrong's going to start moving the majority of his band equipment in there. He's got quite a bit of it in there right now, but he's going to start moving the rest of the instruments. It's beginning to have practice in there, as well as Coach Reed. We allowed him to move all the coaches into their area too. So everybody's kind of getting integrated in there. This is the restaurant area. With the chairs were delivered today. This picture was taken a couple of days ago. But you see the presentation area. The tables will be coming in probably by the end of next week. So that furniture is coming in rapidly. I would say we have at least 95% of the furniture in. But there are some things that are back ordered, some things that are broken, some scratched furniture that's on the punch list that we'll have to replace. This is the cosmetology area. This is a little bit complicated with the furniture because we had a couple of different furniture manufacturers manufacture specific desks and things for this area that would fit with the electric and everything. So, but that's good to go. This is the weight room. If you recall, once again, this was a separate contract that we brought through, and these guys installed all the weight equipment. Was it 2 weeks ago? I think 2 weeks ago, probably. We don't have weights in there yet, but Coach Reed assures me that it does come with weights. And then this is the front of the building, and somebody and I were talking about, there's a drone video out there today that appeared. I'm not really sure who took it of the high school, but there, I mean, it's an incredible building. This is the entranceway to the Performing Arts Center. Once again, it mimics what we had in the CTE area, the restaurant there with the wooden coverage there, as well as the trophy cabinets. And then the lights also come from the front of the school as well as the gymnasium area. And this is the gymnasium area with, you have this wood up to the upper right is from the old Turner gym. We salvaged that. We're still debating about what to put on that. We have an old Indian head from the center court. I believe it came from J.W. Williams a couple iterations ago. And then we've also talked to a couple of former basketball players to do something with that. This is the courtyard area. Up to the right on that porte-cochere, we do have the Roman numerals up there for 2018, so that's gone in. If you drive out there, you see the Roman or the labeling for Performing Arts Center, Gymnasium, Waxahachie High School. Those are installed, and that is really the end of that slideshow. But Mr. Rogers, to talk about what we talked about earlier. Your report is about 2 weeks old. So we had a pay app this morning that we paid at, and that was $103,498,000 and some change. And it does say we're 86% complete. We are 88% complete. So that does leave a delta remaining of about $14 million. I would say really for the building itself, I think we're probably closer to 95% complete. We'll have to go through substantial completion on a lot of the items, as well as the retainage and things like that, and that'll eat up those remaining funds on that. But also on the project status, if you look at those things, those current activities we're pretty much done with. The sidewalks, the landscaping, irrigation, AB is being installed and tested in the auditorium. We were there today. The audio or the video looked great. The audio sounded very well, so they're in the process of calibrating all that. Stage flooring, they have yet to complete that. The rigging and lighting, that is complete there. Turf is finished on the baseball field. We punched all the Hellas contracts, which are turf on all the fields, as well as some of the stands, things like that, about 2 weeks ago. I think they probably, they should have completed their punch list. And it says temporary CO granted for the administration classroom area. I did talk to the city and the building official today. He says people are clear to move in throughout the building. We don't have a complete CO because the complete CO, we have to complete the entire building permit, and that is the stands on the baseball field, the stands on the sub-varsity field, the concession stand out there, and all that stuff to get a complete CO. But as of moving into the rest of the building, the 485,000 square foot of the main building, we're good to go on that. And so with that, I'll answer any questions related to these projects.
Can you forecast if we're on schedule or budget, over, under?
I think we're right on budget. We might be under slightly, but we have a big meeting on Wednesday to rectify all that, just kind of bring that all to accumulation. Schedule, it's, I don't know if I referenced it this last time, but it's like that marathon runner that's on the 25th and 3/4 mile, and they've got the Mylar blanket on them, and they're just struggling, they're cramping up. It's just those little details. The punch list, you've got to get some grout on this. You've got to fix the column that's dinged, 20 feet up, got to get a lift inside the courtyard, got to get through the school. Just those little bitty things that always run into, if you're building a fire station, building a house, doing a renovation, these little details. And that's where we're at right now. But, we're going to have kids in there in 2 days, and I'll guarantee you we're going to open in August with, 2,400 kids. So we'll be ready to go.
What about Coleman Junior High? I'm looking, and Area A and B are addressed, but I don't see anything that addresses the Coleman section. What are you planning to do?
We started painting that. Contract went through probably, I'm going to say in February on the painting, maybe, and we began probably in March on painting the cafeteria. The cafeteria is painted. All the main hallways are painted. We are going in there as a support staff and going through and painting individual classrooms, as well as doing some renovation to what is currently a science area, but we're converting that to an art area. So those are ongoing things that we're doing throughout this.
In addition to that, last summer we repainted the entire exterior of the building and purchased right at $1.3 million in new HVAC.
1.7?
1.7.
I believe it was 1.3 on Coleman.
And you should see the signage probably in the next 3 weeks begin to go up. The old digital sign will come down and new digital sign will go up, as well as some lettering.
The digital sign that's there just for historical purposes got struck by lightning back in, I think, 2008, and it runs on Windows 3.1, so couldn't find anybody to work on it. So it's been a couple of years. We're taking that down.
I forgot to ask, on the new high school, what services are we providing to the community, like oil changes, haircuts, restaurant, coffee bar?
You could do all that. It's really incumbent upon the principals as well as the teachers and things like that. We have given them this incredibly blank palette with all these incredible tools. And really, their imagination is their only limitation. You can do oil changes, you can do tire rotations, top off your fluids, all those things. As far as engines go, we've got Chef Skipper there that, have you seen his current restaurant? Okay, have you seen the new restaurant?
Right.
It's just, he says he can easily cater a meal of 1,000 people there. So, and what he is very good about doing is taking that money that he gets that and feeding it back into his program. So he'll send his kids to Culinary Institute of America if he gets enough money. So it just feeds itself. So right now I would say he's probably feeding 2 to 3 meals a month out of his current location. There's no reason why he couldn't feed, an additional 2 meals a week to teachers in there. There's a deli in there that they can come and pick up a box lunch, any type of things like that. The horticulture, the greenhouse, it's a real greenhouse for one. and it's probably about twice as big as what we got now. There's no reason why they can't grow horticulture and greens for Skipper's Meals. There's no reason why they currently have a plant sale and they work with the master gardeners to have their big plant sale. There's no reason why they can't continue that. The audiovisual guys, there's no reason why they can't use all that equipment and everything, their talent, to create advertisements for all these different programs. So get them out, used to you'd have to do, I'm pulling this out of the air, but let's say $20,000 for a 30-second commercial on Channel 8. You don't do any of that now. It's all social media. You do a 30-second commercial, 15-second commercial. It's seen by 4,000 people. And you can do all that from the high school and feed that out to people, and really, and as well as cosmetology, as well as, pedicure, manicure, all those things. It's really incredible what they're going to be able to do.
So I'm sure once that's all determined, we'll do some kind of press release or let the public know.
Yeah, so we, right now, we promote those services in our newsletter, on our social media, on our website, and we'll continue to do that.
Great. Any other questions for Mr. Mealy? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, I do want to say this is Mr. Mealik's last meeting with us, and I want to tell you how much we appreciate what you've done and wish you the best of luck as you go off to Midlothian. Were you going to do that?
Yes, I was going to do that at the end.
I wonder why you're shaking your head at me.
At this time, we will convene into closed session as allowed by Government Code 55.001 et sec.
I take all that back. We don't miss you.
All right, at this time, the board will reconvene into open session. Item number 6, Human Resources. Mr. Avensheim.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, we bring to you the personnel report and the addendum to the personnel report. There are more than 20 teachers, nurses, counselors, librarians, and administrators that we're recommending for hire tonight. Just notification of a few resignations and then some changes. And I want to highlight one of those changes. It's always a significant pleasure for us as a district to get to promote one of our own. You have a Leapster here. The Leap Academy is for aspiring principals in our midst. Tracy Gilby has been a teacher for 8 years. She's been a fantastic teacher at Marvin Elementary. She excelled in our LEAP program. We knew early on that she is a rising star in this district. Christy Bailey had identified her as soon as she got to WISD a couple years ago. And this year, one of our resignations that we are losing, Dee Hudson, but we have the fantastic opportunity now to promote one of our own, Tracy Gilby. And so we urge you tonight to approve the hire of Tracy Gilby as assistant principal at Marvin Elementary, along with the other hires in the personnel report as recommended to you by your superintendent.
Any questions or discussion? I entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the Human Resources report as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. President. We also now at item A, or item 6A2, we urge the approval of 2 remaining pay scales or hiring schedules for the upcoming school year. It's our hiring schedule for administrative professionals, and it's also our hiring schedule for our auxiliary employees. The hiring scale for the administrative professionals has a few changes and just positions referenced within it, slightly different from the 2017-18 professional scale, but there's no there's no recommended salary increases there, as the salary increases only increased 1.5% this year. So we're going to keep the hiring schedule the same for the 18-19 school year. However, on the auxiliary scale, we were able to increase our auxiliary employees' pay 4%. So we urge that the scale move up slightly, not 4%, but have a slight increase on those positions as it's included in board book beginning at page 217. We just urge the approval of the hiring scales for administrative professionals and for auxiliary employees.
Any questions or discussion? I have a motion. Anyone?
Yes, I move that we approve the administrative professional and auxiliary hiring pay scale.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very excited about this next item. It's our proposal, and this is from Dr. Glenn, Ryan Calden, Shelley Blaylock, all of us. We want to recognize and encourage and incentivize our instructional aides in the classroom that have advanced degrees. And our hiring scale generally is based on years of service, but taking into account education and the advanced abilities that educational aides, instructional aides bring when they bring that advanced education to us. We want to incentivize that and move them up the pay scale, the hiring scale. So with an associate's degree, it's our recommendation that instructional aides would move at a minimum to the midpoint of the hiring scale, whatever hiring scale is appropriate for the field or the position that they have. If they have a bachelor degree, a college degree, or a teacher certification, but are otherwise in an aide position, we want to move them up to the top end of the hiring scale. And of course, they would then be still eligible for cost of living increases that are approved by the board year in, year out, but we want to be able to incentivize those advanced degrees and reward those with advanced degrees. So we urge approval tonight of that enhanced pay for instructional aides with associates and baccalaureate degrees.
I'll make a disclaimer about, I believe we should pay well. I really do. I believe we should shoot for, being very competitive in the county. Obviously, top one or two. I know certain school districts we do our best to compete with, but we're not able to. This 375 is pretty significant in my mind. I'm just wondering, again, sound like a broken record, but do we wait for the budget process on this amount? And so I understand you're saying our budget impact will be 375 for this proposal?
It says there the anticipated budget impact is 375,000 of the known degrees.
Yes, sir. So the impact right now would be 375,000 off the employees that we know have an associate's or an advanced degree.
Right.
Yes, sir. It absolutely could go up. In building the budget for 18-19, we did anticipate a $375,000 cost on this based off of the information we have at hand, but we do know it could always be higher if those employees that we don't have the information on record are able to provide us with that documentation before the start of school.
Or if another paraprofessional is hired
Yes, sir.
with an advanced degree, replacing someone without one.
Yes, sir.
So the budget we've more or less prepared has taken this into account. Of course, it's the board's pleasure to change priorities and make priorities, but at least the initial budget has taken into account the $375,000.
And this truly is, we believe we're going to be able to absorb this in the budget, but certainly there's no harm in waiting till August when the budget's approved so the trustees are comfortable that we are going to be able to adopt a balanced budget to approve it.
Is there any pressing reason why we need to do it now? I mean, I'm open to, if we're trying to do this now for a specific reason.
Generally speaking, I can't think of a instructional aide that's on a 226-day contract. The only issue we might have is starting someone's pay mid-year. But I don't think we have any 226-day instructional aides, and so the 207s aren't coming back now for a couple of weeks. We could take this July 23rd or even August.
We absolutely could delay it. One of the benefits in doing it sooner rather than later, though, are those good instructional employees that we already have with us. They will see some benefit from this, and so the more notice we can give them of what their expected pay should be for the next school year, the better chance we have of retaining them and not losing them to someone else, either outside or another district, whatever the case may be. That's really, I know it's weak, but that's about the only real benefit to doing it sooner, but there's absolutely no reason we couldn't wait. Most of these instructional employees are 187-day, and they will be back the beginning of August.
And my only reference was just the 226-day employees, those year-round employees, their first paycheck on the new year is July 24th. The 11-month employees, their first paycheck is August 24th. The 10-month employees, your standard teachers and your standard instructional aides, their first paycheck is September 24th. And the year goes July to June for the year-rounds, August to July for the 11 months, and September to August for the regular classroom aides and teachers.
It would be my comfort level to wait, but, I'm just one.
Personally, I don't know how these people work and do what they do for what they make. So.
What is our turnover rate with those type of people? That's my concern. When I was teaching, that was difficult to fill those positions with quality people.
For our educational employees, and that's what we published in the TAPER report, it was 12% turnover. That's teacher and instructional aide. The state average is 16%, so we're doing better than the state average. But yes, we're always looking to be competitive to our peers.
Yeah, it's hard to get an individual with a degree to come be a paraprofessional in the district because paraprofessionals, honestly, they don't make a whole lot of. What is our base salary. Do you have it right there?
No, sir, I don't. I think all the way out, it's about 16.5 for a base paraprofessional within these categories that we're talking about.
Yes, $16,000 is not a lot.
Yeah, once again, it-
18,640 to a range of 23,652.
Once again, that's not my hang up with this. I want to pay our people well. I'm worried about the budget impact part of it.
And so, I feel, again, we have ongoing conversations daily. We do have a high degree of confidence that you're going to be presented a balanced budget on August 27th. And again, same thing with the tax rate. The tax rate will remain the same. So, but we have no problem. We have no problem bringing this back to you as part of the budget either. So, thank you, Mr.
I did
Rogers.
notice that there were several positions that were in education, in the education part, in the teacher aides, and this might help us retain new, might help you with the hiring process if we
I agree,
are
Ms.
able to give a little bit better for those with a degree.
Yes.
I mean, our HR report that we just approved, there's at least 2 aides that are now becoming teachers, that we might not be able to retain those type of people if we don't do something like this. At least 2 that I can see.
And we're pretty fortunate. A lot of the paraprofessionals that have a bachelor's degree end up becoming teachers for the district. So they do aspire. Typically, when they come into those paraprofessional positions, they're just there long enough to grab a teaching position.
And Shirley Buster, our certification specialist, is routinely getting information to the campus principals and then also specifically to the aides for the opportunities to earn that teaching certificate or work through one of the alternative certification programs. And we do very much encourage promotion from within the district. But we will bring this back to the board along with the budget. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Thank you, board. The last item on our report is just the first review of the 2018. Oh, forgive me.
We have to take action on that.
To table it.
Okay.
At this time, I entertain them.
And it's just consideration with possible action, so you don't actually have to take action to table unless you want to table. You can simply take no action.
I've got a quick question. Mr. Calden, last year, the total budget, wasn't it around 70 million?
The budget that we're in this year is about 74 and some change, I believe.
And so teachers, or I guess salaries are about 80% of that?
Yes, sir.
So this is less than 1% of, if you do the math, the whole thing. So, I mean, that should be pretty easily absorbed. I mean,
It is one of the things, one of the considerations that we have built in with our budget expectations for the next year, but, it's at the pleasure of the board.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, we'll be able to.
I'll entertain a motion, whatever the board's desire.
I'll make a motion that we approve increasing the incentive pay for instructional paraprofessional with advanced degrees.
Is there a second?
I second.
Motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 6-1. All right, first review of the employee handbook. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. President. I gave up too early. Forgive me. Anyway, the next item is truly just a first review. And so it's in your board book, beginning at page 225. It's your 2018-19 employee handbook. Unlike the student code handbook that has regular updates each year, generally speaking, the biggest updates for this policy come in the form of legislative updates. There wasn't a legislature that met this spring, so there's not any really substantive updates. The biggest challenge locally is including all of the campus changes for the map and also all of our new campus leaders and department leaders. But as for the substance, we substantially overhauled the electronic communications with students pursuant to all the changes in state law at the last session. So those are still present in the handbook. Just urge you to take opportunity to look through the handbook if you have any questions. I'm certain to present those tonight, but also present those over the next couple of weeks to me or Dr. Glenn. and we'll bring it back to you for approval at the next meeting.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Superintendent's report, consideration of possible action to establish procedures regarding intra-district transfers.
Thank you, Mr. President. We do have 4 items for your consideration tonight, and the first is to discuss the intra-district student transfer policy. You have in your packet a hardship form. Is our recommendation tonight that trustees approve amending policy FBD local to allow parents to appeal to a district level committee via the hardship form enclosed in your packet.
Currently, as our policy sits, there is no appeal process.
That is,
am I correct?
That is correct. And if approved tonight, we will bring you guys a report in October showing you how many people applied for transfer via the grandparent clause and the intra-district transfer clause, and how many were granted.
Any discussion? Starnator?
Thank you, Mr. Autry. I served on the rezoning committee for the school district last year, and the hardship request form I think is great. I want to commend the district on providing that. I think that helps to help the district identify real hardships and prevents abuse, I guess you would say, of the of the guidelines, which has happened in the past. So, but the policy that we're approving, the pieces, most notably, grandchild of a district employee picking a campus. There's, what else was on there? There was one other thing. Anyway, I just wanted to disclose that as a member of that committee, our recommendation was to have the intra-district transfer policy be as clear, succinct, make the rules, stick to them, so there's not any abuse. And we didn't necessarily recommend all of this, so I just feel like I need to disclose that because I have a lot of constituents to answer to that have concerns. And if we allow any transfer in our school district, any intra-district transfer from one campus to another for any reason other than these mentioned, I just think that it's a PR nightmare. It has been a PR nightmare. It's been kind of an elephant in the room topic that a lot of people don't want to discuss, but I've tackled it head on. Here's my big concern, and I made notes because, as you can see, I'm passionate about it. If we have campuses with issues that are causing parents to try whatever they can to move to another campus, then as a district and as a community, we need to take a look at that and put time and resources into helping these schools, not just allow folks to leave. We have many parents who are committed to following the rules, and they see the rules not being followed and they get frustrated. And it's not because they're jealous, it's just because they love the school and they hate to see certain parents who could be very valuable resources to that school leave. And I just wanted to throw that out there. It's not about taking anything away from any employee. It's just about a unified, succinct, know what the rules are, follow the rules, and help make the schools where we're at better. I don't know. Hopefully I conveyed my sentiments well. Thank you.
Any others? Go ahead, Mr. Schofield.
I want to say one thing on my personal view on this policy. I like every part of it, but the child or grandchild of a district employee. And I don't really think that a grandchild should be moving unless that grandparent is a care provider of the child. I mean, if they're taking care of them, that's an entirely different animal. But if they're merely an employee of the district, That worked when we were a small town, but we're crowded now, and that's just because you're a grandparent. I'm not sold that you should get to move your kid, as tough as that may be. Now, as I do back up, I know a lot of them are providing care for kids, and I'm not talking about that. That may not even be their legal guardian. I mean, that happens all the time in our society. We see it. They're not the legal guardian, but they're taking, care of the kid. But that's the one thing I'd ask that we look at. Everything else, I think, really tightens things up a bunch. It's going to save us problems and gives us flexibility to help those who need it.
I think our discussion at our workshop touched on that, and I believe, was it discussed that it may be too late to
do it for this year?
But something that we look at moving forward?
Yeah.
And that's something that we can look at when we get those numbers in October?
Sure.
Is that when you say we get those numbers?
Yes, sir.
It's something that we look at, something that we look in October and see if it is being abused or whatnot, and if we do need to change it, we'll change it. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, I entertain a motion.
Move that we approve the WISD interdistrict hardship transfer form and verbiage as written in the board book.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Board. It has been a priority for our WISD trustees to look at school safety and to certainly do everything we can to improve school safety district-wide. For the last couple of meetings, trustees have had significant discussions on what we can do, and they are currently reviewing a proposal of 15 recommendations and discussion items from our previous meetings. I'll just go through those real quick for the people watching online and also for those in the audience tonight. The first is an implementation of the Marshall Plan and training of security officers. The second is the implementation of a guardian plan. So there's the possibility we could do one or both with all the training requirements required by the state of Texas. The addition of a second school resource officer, which trustees have already approved, metal detectors on the campuses, rotating elementary and junior high security officers to different campuses, adopting a discipline policy for students or staff who intentionally leave facilities insecure, providing crisis counseling for students as needed, and that also includes working with our special education department to identify and provide services for students who have violent mental health risks. Also training of our staff for security lockdown and evacuations, implementation of the duress emergency response program, and law enforcement training that goes with it, implementing a delayed evacuation for the district for pooled alarms, hiring local law enforcement, either the Sheriff's Department or PD, to work WISD campuses randomly throughout the day, working with our partners in education to train and partner with community members to provide visibility through a volunteer program on our campuses, specifically targeting retired law enforcement or veterans, implementing leadership programs at junior high campuses to help work with our security and SROs, implementing programs to encourage first responders and law enforcement to be on our campuses, either through workstations, free lunches, or informational programs. And then finally, to explore programs or policies for improved parent notification during an emergency. So in the event that we actually have an emergency, making sure that our communication is improved. So those 15 items, trustees will be reviewing over the next couple weeks their budget impact, timelines of when these things could be implemented, and the policy changes and necessary action that they would have to take to approve some or all of these recommendations.
Any other discussion? I believe we're going to discuss this in depth and possible action on a called meeting 2 weeks from tonight. Okay.
And
First,
I'm sorry.
You got another item?
No, I wanted to acknowledge our security team that we do have present tonight. We do appreciate y'all being involved in what you do for us as well.
Item number 3, first review of school board standing operating procedures.
Thank you, Mr. President. Each year, the Board of Trustees adopts standard operating procedures that kind of go above and beyond local policy. These are rules by which you use to govern yourself Adoption of these policies, amendments to these policies are truly the pleasure of the board. They are presented to you as approved by last year's trustees.
I would encourage each and every one of you, specifically the new ones, to go through and read them and recommend changes. Again, this is how we govern ourselves. So if there's any changes or suggestions, I would be more than happy to entertain making changes if you guys see needed.
Mr. President, would it be possible at a future board workshop, maybe, like prior to a regular meeting, that we might have an opportunity to discuss this a little bit?
Probably do it in our August meeting.
Okay. I think having time to look at them, I know I've looked over them, and as you said, we govern ourselves, and we need to pick something that we feel comfortable with, and we might want to discuss some of them to make changes or just recognize that that's an area we need to focus on.
Okay, we'll do that in August.
Good.
Okay, last thing on our agenda tonight, schedule a training date for HB 1566, evaluating and improving student outcomes.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, the governor has required all boards to take place in the EISO training. It's a 3-hour training, and we need to do it before August 31st, 2018. I have 3 dates that presenter is able to come in. If none of these 3 dates work for all trustees, we can acquire more dates. But we're looking at next week. We could do it on July 16th or 17th. The other date available is August 14th.
August what?
August 14th.
That's a Tuesday, correct?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if it's required, that you can't make this up. I will be out of town all next week on mission trip.
Okay.
I can do the August 14th meeting, and I could find a way to make it up if that's not the date that works for anybody else.
I will be out of town next week as well. August 14th works for me.
August 14th is also the I Love You guys. They're coming back that day.
So, and that training is during the day, but that might be a long day for those of you who do want to attend the I Love You Guys training.
And we can look for alternative dates if the 14th doesn't work.
If they overlap, I would like to reconsider. I was going to make that
I Love You
August
Guys
14th bill.
Okay. Do you think we could reach out, while I have you here, do you have a suggestion of another day that maybe that same week?
About Thursday the 16th.
Thursday the 16th?
I believe that'll work for me.
The 16th.
Dr. Glenn, can you guys give me one more date? The gentleman that will be presenting is from the Texas Education Agency that wrote, he was one of the contributors to writing this program, so he's in high demand. Can you give me one more date that I can give him?
Is August 20th a Monday?
Yeah.
What about August 20th?
August 20th?
That's,
August 20th is Bring Your
That's
Supplies
Bring Your
Night,
Supplies
just if that matters to anyone.
21st?
Bring Your Supplies Night. Yeah, I'm
23rd,
sorry.
either one's fine with me.
Tuesday the 21st, but let's really try and shoot for the 16th.
So Thursday the 16th or Tuesday the 21st.
Okay. And then I do need a date for a goal-setting workshop in September, and the dates I have are September 1st.
That's a national holiday.
Yeah, can't do that, can't do that. September 17th.
September 1st is a Saturday.
Is it?
Yeah, it is.
And it's a national holiday.
If
Come
you don't
on.
want to be in on Saturday, we don't have to.
That's open day hunting season.
What is September 17th? Is that a Monday?
It's a Monday,
September 24th,
Monday,
and then October 3rd.
Wednesday.
October,
September 24th.
Let's do it in September.
I'm good on any of those.
September 24th is good for me specifically.
September 24th. All right. Perfect. Okay. That's what I have right here. Maybe it was 7.
You're obviously not a hunter, Dr. Glenn. Okay. Is there anything else before we adjourn?
Thank you, Board. We appreciate it tonight. That's all the business we have for the district.
All right.
Even though Dr. Glenn stole my thunder earlier, I do want to recognize Mr. Mealy. This is his last meeting as Assistant Superintendent of WISD. I want to thank you for the time and the service that you gave us. Your memory and legacy will definitely be remembered sitting out on 287. And I wish you the best of luck in your new adventure as the Assistant City Manager at Midlothian. At this time,
I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make the motion that we adjourn.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Board.